Right.
You're an interesting person. Have you got a moment just to talk about the bank Royal Commission?
I can.
Real quick.
Yeah.
Mate, I spent a couple of days actually while the couple of fellows from the NAB were being examined there, and they gave them a pretty hard time, and they didn't come across very well to those of us who were in the audience or the gallery. How did you think that they performed, specifically the NAB?
Look, I didn't see an awful lot of people's testimony through it. No,
Yeah.
I find better things to do with my time than watching
Fair enough.
all-day transcripts. I would say during the Royal Commission, or might have been just after it, I actually went to one of the sessions that Claire O'Neill facilitated with the round tables.
Right.
And I found that a real eye-opener, because I must admit, as someone who was observing the Royal Commission through a media lens, I got snippets of what was occurring. But when I sat in a room that I thought might be, to some extent, staged, I actually found some very genuine people with really deep-seated concerns. I thought that was extraordinary.
Mate, I let myself down on the last day. There was a guy sitting a few seats up from me who, as they were shutting down the hearing, he got up and started abusing the Royal Commission and the banks and everyone. And the Royal Commissioner asked the bailiffs to come and remove him from the place, which they did. And I went outside. Unfortunately, I didn't have my camera with me. I would like to have asked him who he was and what his story was. Are Slater and Gordon going to be having an interest in, I don't know, a class action?
Well, as you know,
you already have one.
Slater and Gordon have already announced a class action. We've got a significant number, very significant. We're talking tens of thousands of people who have signed on to that class action. We've already announced the actions against common short anyway. So already there. So yes, I think that's the start of what we'll see. And I've just made the point on air here at Sky that one of the things that we'll see out of this is, I don't think it's quite the watershed moment in banking administration that everyone is hoping for.
Right.
And at the end of the day, I think it's probably a really good thing that we've got strong law firms like Slater and Gordon out there who will try and jump into the fray, because I don't think administration will change as fundamentally as people might hope.
One thing, I'm a retired tax officer. I spent 26 years as a business auditor. I saw my job as helping people find taxable income they didn't realise they had, and it gave me a degree of satisfaction to help people pay extra tax when they owed it. I also recognise that we owe businesses a debt of gratitude for the effect they have on the economy and employment and so on. The banks are amongst the largest taxpayers and the largest employers in Australia. Do you agree that they've done a lot for the community whilst causing some angst?
Well, they're a functional part of the community, aren't they? So I suppose if you say they're a functional part of the community and we live in a capitalist-based economy, then we have to accept that part of that capitalist-based economy is people who provide services will want to make a profit out of it. So
absolutely.
Yes, do they fulfil a role and a function? Well, yes, they do. But again, make the point today, and a point that was stressed by Neil Mitchell on air this morning. It quoted an English politician from 1734, Sir John Barnard, who tried to reform the banks.
Okay.
People will always try and sensibly regulate on the worst excesses.
Yes.
But as I say, at the end of the day, these are always areas which have to be contested, legislated. That's really how the world works.
I was intrigued a couple of years ago when it was revealed that the Commonwealth Bank had failed to report to Austrac millions of dollars in cash transactions that went through their automated ATM machines that they had introduced. And that was seen as a terrible failing on the part of the bank. Now, back in 2010, there was a big scandal, a financial scandal called Trio Capital, where some offshore scammers had taken over an Australian financial licensed company and used it to steal $175 million from Australian superannuation investors. And I've asked Bill Shorten, and I've asked other people in Power, ASIC and APRA whether there were any AUSTRAC reports in relation to the $175 million that was sent out of the country to the offshore tax havens. And they've never provided me an answer to that question. And my observation is, if the government apparently is not looking at the AUSTRAC reports that they do get, maybe we shouldn't point the finger so much at the Commonwealth Bank for their failing in lodging the AUSTRAC reports in the first place. Maybe there's a class action against the ATO and ASIC and APRA.
It's an area. Well, again, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm probably not a good person to judge that. I might work for a law firm, but I'm not a lawyer, not a great person to judge that. Again, I think the interesting thing about the super firms, and it ultimately comes down to that distinction between the retail firms in particular, or the banking super firms, is whether the directors of the bank super firms are fulfilling their duties and obligations to do the best for the superannuant.
I agree.
Rather than when they're simply on selling stocks. And interesting challenge, wouldn't it be, to see what the Commonwealth Bank's own staff superannuation scheme might have been able to attract and what they were offering their customers.
Mate, an interesting thing happened just before Christmas. So I was looking at my bank statement, and there was several $1,000s deposit into an account which I wasn't expecting, and I thought it was a mistake. The next day I contacted, it said it came from the ATO. The next day I contacted the ATO, and they said, after a lot of identification and so on, they said, oh, it's from a superannuation account from AMP. And so I rang AMP, and it turned out that it was a job that my wife used to work at about 20 years ago, and the employer had been paying into a super fund, and it had gone astray. We never heard any more about it after she left that job, and I suspect that the AMP might be going through their books and saying, maybe we should report these things. So I don't know, maybe...
Well, and again, I've just made the point upstairs and would make it here too. This is a wake-up call for customers to pay attention to what's going on. Don't rely, and fundamental advice would be, don't rely on the banking system to be doing its best for you at all times. I'm a great believer of good government, good public policy, as you'd expect from any lefty. But also say, don't rely on government to be doing the best. You've got to look out for yourself in these environments and take action. Grab a law firm, investigate.
Mate, I appreciate your time, and I'm going to ask you something now, and I'll cut it out of my recording if you like.
Melbourne will win the flag.
I'll keep that in. The bank shares went up today by 4 or 5 or 6%, I think. Slater and Gordon shares didn't move very much. What do you think's going to happen down the track with Slater's? Now, I'll cut this out if you don't want.
Well, again, I don't even know the legalities of an employee commenting on it. What I would say, of course, is if we take a class action, that's not necessarily a fundamental driver of our bottom line. It's about doing the right thing. Good driver of the bottom line of the people who are pursuing the class action.
Was it a Slater's or
I don't think it's a relevant comparison.
Was it a Slater's or a Maurice Blackburn, the Black Saturday suit?
Before my time. I've only been there 6 months, so before my time.
What were you doing before that?
I've spent a pretty long history in a range of public policy roles. Work safe in the TAC here in Victoria. Spent a bit of time in Tasmania as a chief of staff to a premier there. Spent a lot of time advising politicians up here before that, going back to the Kennett Brumby Brax era.
Mate, I post things on called Outside Insiders on YouTube. I'm going to post this. If you want to have a look at Outside Insiders, and if you see the video, if there's anything that concerns you about it, if you drop me a line, I'll cut it out. Mate, thank you very much. Bill Thompson.
Bill, righto. And that shirt deserves some time on camera.
Nice talking to you. Thank you.